This former model and nanny murdered her husband, then dismembered him, and according to court testimony, cooked and tasted part of his body in 1991. A crime so shocking it made headlines around the world. Let's talk about Thanksgiving murders. Born in Cairo in 1968, OmaimaNelson grew up in a very strict household, one of 16 siblings. She immigrated to the U.S. at 18 years old after marrying an American man. In California, she worked as a model and also as a babysitter. But what nobody knew was that Omaima had a very tragic past. In interviews, she would later describe a childhood filled with physical abuse as well as being subjected to female genital mutilation. By 1991, she was 23 years old, vulnerable, and just looking for some kind of stability. That's when she met Bill Nelson. Bill was 56 years old, a big, outgoing Texas pilot with a love for Harley-Davidson, barbecues, and much younger women. The two met at a bar, fell into a whirlwind romance, and got married within just a few weeks. Friends, however, said the age gap didn't matter, but the relationship quickly became volatile, and very quickly they were no longer laughing on their honeymoon like this photo. Behind closed doors, the couple fought constantly. Neighbors were always hearing shouting, and then Thanksgiving weekend arrived. According to Omaima, the attack began while they were having bondage intimacy. She claimed that Bill restrained her and she didn't want him to. He assaulted her and she fought back. And that was her defense. But from the beginning, the prosecutors were painting a very different picture. They argued that Omaima planned this murder. She stabbed Bill repeatedly with a pair of scissors, then grabbed a clothing iron and bludgeoned him to death with said iron until it broke in her hands. When investigators would later search their apartment, they found blood literally everywhere. A blender filled with human tissue, skinned body parts, and Bill's head was boiling in a pot. One officer said that this was the most horrific scene he had ever witnessed, and he had to actually step outside. Obviously, Omaima dismembered her husband, which is a task that doesn't just take a couple minutes. She would have had to take hours, and especially a woman of her size, it would have been very difficult to cut through bone. She told a psychiatrist that she cooked Bill's ribs in barbecue sauce and tasted them. That detail exploded across the news, and all of a sudden, every newspaper was covered with the Thanksgiving cannibal. Omaima would later recant that testimony, insisting that she never actually ate any part of Bill, but other pieces of his body were never fully recovered. Another one of the reasons that the prosecution just didn't believe this self-defense thing is that right after all of this happened, Omaima didn't call the police. No, she dismembered her husband and then she went to her ex-boyfriend's house and she asked him for help. Of course, that boyfriend saw these trash bags, bloody trash bags in her car and heard her request, help me get rid of it. And instead of helping, he straight up called the police. Hours later, that's when the detectives actually made it to the apartment and found that gruesome crime scene in California. Ultimately, Omaima was arrested December 2nd, 1991, and she didn't get to trial until 1993. Her lawyers argued self-defense. Years of trauma, combined with Bill's alleged violence, drove her to kill him. But the prosecution claimed she was a manipulator with a pattern of targeting older men because the only reason why she got to America was because she married another man who was like 30 years older than her. The jury took 6 days to deliberate, but ultimately she was convicted of second-degree murder, and the judge sentenced her to 27 years to life. Now, over the years, Omaima has sought parole, most notably in 2011, but the board has repeatedly denied her, calling her unpredictable and still dangerous. Today, she remains one of the most infamous female killers in California history, a woman whose crime, fueled by violence, trauma, desperation, or something darker maybe, continues to haunt circles and shock everybody who hears it.